Hello, everyone! From dramas to webtoons to novels, explore Korea's story with us. This is Who Reads Story. My name is An Sung-jin, and I'm a reporter, and today we have a guest with us. Welcome back.
Hi, well, it's a pleasure to be here. My name is Andrea.
Okay, so Andrea, today we're going to be talking about a movie that's fairly well known. It's called Parasite by director Bong Joon-ho. And recently this has been resurfaced because the New York Times has selected it as the top of the 100 best movies of the 21st century. Now, this list has been compiled by 500 critics and 200,000 readers. That's why it's, I guess, a little bit more surprising to see it on the top of the list.
Well, that's amazing because I remember that this movie was a huge thing some years ago, and now the resurface is yeah, if you haven't watched it, you should. And then I was just looking at the list and I noticed that it was not the only Korean one. There was another one from director Bong that it was Memories of a Murder. That one is in place 99.
Right.
And then also The Handmaiden that we talked about that one before. That was in 67. So it was okay, so there are more than one Korean movie there. It's really interesting how Korean cinema is just standing.
It's impressive to see that. When I was recommending it to some of my foreigner friends who like Bong Joon-ho, I told them that, not only check out Parasite, which ranked first, but you can also see Memories of Murder or some other movies by him that are on the list. Now, director Bong Joon-ho had actually once said that the most Korean thing is actually becoming the most universal thing, and I feel like that has become a reality nowadays. Now, today I want to talk about how these components within the movie are showing a lot of Koreanness, but also at the same time appealing to a more global audience. And I'm also excited to talk about how this piece has actually been recommended as the top of the list by these critics and readers for the 21st century. Now, Andrea, have you watched this movie? It's been out for a while now, so I'm sure you would have watched it.
Yeah, actually watched it more than twice. The first time was in 2019. And later, I remember that there was a book club in my university, and we also watched it there, and we discussed about it. But in my case, I remember that I didn't watch it for director, but I watched it for the character that was played by Song Kang-ho, because he's one of my favorite actors.
Really?
So I was like, oh, Song Kang-ho is there, so I want to watch the movie. And then also a lot of people was talking about it, so I was like, well, maybe it's a good movie, so let's give it a try. So I did it, and I like it.
You liked it?
Yes.
Oh, okay, I see. Well, to briefly talk about the plot for our viewers who might have not watched it yet, the movie actually itself talks about this unemployed family, the Kim family, living in a semi-basement, and they kind of infiltrate their lives into this wealthy family. And the story itself evolves around how these two families are kind of intertwined and eventually reach a tragedy, I must say. Hopefully that's not too much of a spoiler, but that's kind of how the story revolves, right?
Yeah, and also we can see some things related with another movie from the same director, Snowpiercer, that it was released in 2013. And in this one, he also plays with the spaces. He also plays with this idea in the storyline, the division of space, division somehow also of classes. And then in Parasite, we can totally see that.
Right.
With the two families, so we see this wealthy house, and then we see this place in which the family king is living, and it's a huge difference.
You can see the difference, yeah. Right.
And the architecture also plays a really important role. And I think that it's not just the architecture, but just, I don't really know about movies. I took a class about that, but I remember also kind of the angles of the camera. So the angles of the camera play also a role, in the spectator to see some specific parts of the houses, some specific parts of the space. So I think that thing was really well done in that sense, to play with the division of these houses and the space.
Right. It's interesting to see how, as you mentioned, the division of space, or the way that Bong Joon, the director, actually outlines the division in class through space, is a recurring theme. As you say, it comes out through Parasite, Snowpiercer, which I actually kind of liked more than the Parasite. But To add on a little bit more to our viewers who maybe are not familiar with the movie itself, the movie has actually received a lot of accolades, including the one in 2019 in the Cannes film. The Palme d'Or was one of the most notable, awards. And the year after that, in the Academy Awards, it won actually 4 different awards: the Best Picture, the Best the best director, the best screenplay, and the best international film. And it was actually the first non-English movie to be receiving the award, which I think is why it becomes a little bit more impressive. And when it actually was released in the US, it didn't have any English dubs. It was released in Korean itself, yet it still passed 50 million US dollars in their box offices in North America, and globally abroad it received more than 200 million US dollars of profit, which I think itself explains how well acclaimed it was.
I think that it's really interesting to see that this movie was released like before COVID.
That's true.
Because like I think that Hallyu and also like these Korean productions have changed a lot after like COVID. And then like with this movie obtaining a lot of this international recognition, it was thanks like to these many like awards, but it was also like in fact about like the quality of the movie.
That's true.
Because the movie was so good that like people was telling just their friends and their family, oh, I watched this movie, you should go and watch it. Oh, it talks about this. Oh, this character was good. So in that sense, like the international recognition and the approval of the global audience, that was really high. However, I remember that there was like an interview or something in which director Park Joon-ho said like, yes, like people outside of Korea, they are going to understand a lot of these universal topics that are in the movies, but there are some things that are really cultural, Korean specific, that then Korean people, they are going to be the only ones to understand 100% the movie. And for me, that was really interesting because it was like, well, I understand many things about this, but maybe a Korean person, they are going to understand deeper.
Right, that's true.
What is it about? Yeah.
Which is why I'm excited to be talking about that today in our episode. We're going to try to dive into a lot of the components that may be only confined to Koreans that maybe our international viewers might have missed out on. So shall we get into more of the details?
Yeah, actually remember a scene in which like the child of this rich family,
The wealthy family,
he wanted like to eat something similar to ramyun, but it was not ramyun. And then the housekeeper just prepared it, but like in the English titles they said ramdong. And then I was like, okay, it's not the normal ramen, it's another kind. I was like, spaghetti, is that the same? Well, so what was that? And why they call it ramdong?
Right, that's an interesting point. I do wonder why they called it ramdon. I feel like it's a combination of like ramen and udon. But good point, because in Korea we call it japaguri. It's, as you say, a mixture of 2 different ramens. One's a spicy one, and one's more of like a black bean paste ramen. And that component itself, that food, was actually used in the movie to talk about the difference in class as well, because the way the wealthy family actually makes it, they add like the special kind of like expensive meat on it and make it really special, whereas for the original unemployed Kim family, it's just more of like a snack, like a daily easy convenient snack, which is why it's impressive that you actually pointed it out.
Yeah, like this ordinary somehow like food became luxurious.
Right.
Because they put beef.
Exactly.
And here beef is really expensive.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it was like, okay, it's a specific, like to have this kind of top.
And it adds that luxury that the unemployed Kim family can't afford. By adding that beef, as you say, it makes that dish stand out a bit more. It makes it a little bit more special. And I guess the director, Bong Joon-ho, it actually is interesting because he says that though in fact, in reality, regardless of class, everyone likes it. You know, it's a very common dish. It's a very tasty dish. Yeah. Regardless of adult, kid, you would like that dish. And in fact, after the movie had become a major hit, this food itself has also become a major hit. Yeah. A lot of people started making it. I've seen a lot of reels or on social media.
I saw it in Colombia.
Really? It is interesting. Yeah, a lot of people have actually created their own style and made it into a mix, which is why I guess this movie really shows how such cultural components within Korea can become well influenced or
Yeah.
well known amongst a global audience.
There was another thing. I don't know if maybe you recognize this.
제시카 외동딸
Oh, of course. Of course, it's a song that we can't forget about, right?
Yeah, because like for me it was really catchy, like kind of the human. I was like, it looks really catchy, but why? There is like something behind of like this song. Do you know something about it?
Good point. I feel like that is also something that perhaps a lot of Koreans might only know because the song is actually based on a melody from Dokdo is Our Land. It's kind of like a childhood song that everyone knows if you're Korean. It's the 4x4 rhythm, and it's a very easy melody, as you might have realized. That
It's really
kind of
catchy.
catchy, right?
Yeah,
Exactly. And it's interesting because they use that melody on their way to kind of commit fraud.
Yeah.
They're trying to memorize what they're going to be lying about, and they're like, okay, we're going to memorize it in an easy way. And I feel like that's why they bring in a song that's so catchy and so commonly known by Koreans.
Yeah, like I remember that like in internet you can find things like the Jessica single or the doorbell song. So like international fans were putting like a lot of names like to
Right.
this. But I think that also like this like children's song emphasized a little bit like her character, like her
Right.
personality, because of the thing that they were doing like inside of the house. They were just waiting,
Right.
like as you said, to
Right.
commit fraud.
To commit fraud.
And something that for me, like now that you are explaining to me what happened, it's like it makes me think a little bit about Squid Games, like with the last
True.
season with the songs, because there were a lot of songs that were children's songs
Right.
and they're really catchy. And I think that international fans now are kind of getting more used to know more cultural aspects that probably in other respects they are not going to know about it. So it's really good.
Right. So even if our global viewers might not know what the song itself is in the first go, a lot of Koreans will be familiar with it. And because the song is so catchy, I feel like even the global viewers or the global audience will kind of try to remember it, or like it'll come every then and now because it's so catchy. And also, apart from this melody that comes out throughout the movie, in the beginning of the movie, we also see a fumigation truck, which kind of used to be common back in Korea. You know, the unemployed family that lives in the semi-basement has their window open and the truck passes by and they're like, oh, might as well get some, what do you say? I guess it's preventing contamination. Might as well. We should also try to breathe in the air as it comes by, which I thought was kind of ironical and also kind of funny, unfortunate at the same time. But it really isn't much of a common thing anymore, I suppose. Have you seen one?
Not really. I remember like when I was in university, like kind of in the agronomical department, and like in
I
this kind of
see.
stuff. Like they were using some, but it was like people using like some small ones, but not like really trucks.
Like trucks passing by,
Yeah.
right?
And I really remember that scene because they were doing something like with the pizza cartons. So it was the whole family
Right.
like working on it, like kind of building like all of it.
Right.
And it was like the father, he says exactly like, actually maybe we should take advantage of it.
exactly.
Yeah, like to somehow clean it, the house, because
Right.
before that he was just at the table,
Right.
and there was a bug.
Right.
And I think that it was totally related, like with later, like with this scene with the smoke.
Yeah, it's actually interesting on how the director really incorporated that scene because the truck, back in the 90s, it was really common to see it during the summer. You'd have trucks go around small towns or villages to prevent any contamination. But nowadays, it's not as common. And I guess the reason why I mentioned it's kind of unfortunate and funny at the same time is because if you think about it, no one wants to directly breathe in from the fumigation truck. But the fact that this Kim family actually welcomed it was sad, also funny. It brings out these double emotions about the situation itself.
I think like this scene was like really powerful because it's showing us kind of this diversity of situations that people can face. And I think that maybe also we can see this later when the semi-basement, like there is raining a lot,
Right.
like these days. And then
Right.
like they have a lot of water inside and they just need like to leave the place. So
Right.
like with these scenes, they are showing like through the movie how like a lot of people like living in these spaces, they are facing situations that they shouldn't, that it shouldn't be like that,
Right.
and then that it even is dangerous,
Right.
like to live in these spaces. But I mean, no everybody can just like pay for other parts
Right.
to live,
Right.
and this one is cheaper. So I think that the movie really somehow with these scenes go deeper, because
Exactly.
it's not just about showing, oh yeah, it's funny how this smoke or how the
Right.
water. It's more about like how actually like in this society nowadays, not just here, like in many places, but like specifically about this scene, like in the semi basement, is like not everybody can pay for other space. So then we need to have a place to live.
Right.
And then like I remember this scene just at the beginning when they are looking for Wi-Fi.
Oh, true. They like go to the bathroom, they climb
Yeah.
on the toilet trying to look for signal. That's true. I guess, as you just said, Andrea, I think the director does a good point on reflecting the reality through a almost satirical manner. He tries to show that the reality is this way, but he portrays it in a way that's involving some sort of satire, so it doesn't come out so blunt by saying like, these people are in such a poor condition. It's more
Exactly.
like, look at how these people live, but let's try to put it out through humor, which is, I guess, why director Bong does a really good job showing the division of class or even all these realities throughout the movie itself. So all the small details that we talked about, whether it be the tapaguri, the fumigation truck, or the Jessica song, they all sort of reflect these small details that might be only confined to Koreans, but now they've reached a global audience. They've reached a wider viewer range because so many people have been now absorbed with this type of culture. And what's interesting is that after director Bong won the Oscars, he said that, if we've changed the structure of the house or how we show it in the movie, we could have easily filmed this film in Brazil or India, which is, I guess, it's interesting. He's saying that it's not about the location, it's more about how you portray it, how you portray the scene, or how you put all these different individual items or components to create the message that he wants to really deliver.
Yeah, I think that it was really powerful, like in the movie, how despite that there are a lot of like cultural specific things about Korean society, many of these things can also be portrayed in any part
Any
of the
part,
world
right.
somehow.
That's
In
true.
any city. And then like sometimes it was not that kind of deep, like he was showing some stuff, but like it was about class inequality, social mobility
Right.
somehow. And we can even
We
talk
can-
about capitalism
Right,
there.
that's true, that's true. And I feel like all these components aren't really only something that's seen in Korea, which is why perhaps for some viewers they might have been able to resonate more or understand it, because it's not really talking only about Korea. And now if we were to move on to talk about why this movie has ranked first in the New York Times list that we talked about, I guess New York Times, it mentions how the movie talks about people who have and the have-nots, and it almost even goes into the tragedy of neoliberalism that we see these days. As you mentioned, it could also kind of stream in with capitalism, because
Yeah.
it talks about so many of the materialistic aspects of our reality. And director Pong, he talks about how this movie itself is kind of, he's been portrayed as a master of unconventional genre. He doesn't really have a specific aspect that he's good at, but he's kind of generally good in all the aspects of how he talks about it in the movie. What other reasons do you think are explaining on why this movie has been ranked on the top for the 21st century movies?
I think that the movie has a lot of metaphor that can be implicit and explicit.
That's true.
And then like there are a lot of scenes in which, I don't know, somehow the genre of the movie, we can see comedy sometimes that
Right.
you are going to just laugh
Laugh
with
at it.
and sometimes you are going to cry. And then like there is like drama, there is like kind of comedy. So I think that somehow it's portraying just life. Somehow it's portraying like in life we have like these funny moments, but these sad moments too. these moments in which like, okay, if we don't have a job, if we need like to do something, if we need like to take care of the family. And I think that was the thing. They are talking about like this family, Kim, and then somehow it can be represented in like other families. Like they are not talking about, I don't know, a magician,
Right.
dinosaurs, I
Right.
don't know, like things that are like fictional and just
Right.
fantastic. They are talking about life.
Right.
And like somehow with these characters, you can say, oh, I'm similar to this one, or I like this, or wow, I know someone that is like that. And I think in that sense, it doesn't matter if you are Korean or not. Maybe you can feel that you feel represented there, or that there are some ideas that the movie is portraying that resonate with you. And I think in that sense, also like the movie is giving some messages like to people and kind of also opening conversations. And I think that's interesting about a movie, that it's not just about going to the cinema or now with platforms just watch it, but also talk about it,
Right.
discuss. And then, as I mentioned before, I watched it also in a movie club.
club.
And then I saw that in a lot of parts, people were watching with other people. And I think this exercise of community, like with movies, it's one of the reasons, like for now, this one being categorized as the first one.
Right, it's interesting as you mentioned that, because I feel like the movie isn't just about an easy entertainment. It kind of provokes some sense of thinking that you might be able to discuss with other people. Now, so far we've talked about why director Bong Joon-ho's Parasite has been ranked first, and also how it incorporates all these very Korean cultural elements to a wider audience for the global viewers. Now, it also, I guess, throws in the question of how can we coexist, right? Because eventually this story, the plot itself, kind of talks about how this poor, unemployed,
Yeah.
family living in the semi-basement intertwines with this wealthy family. And it kind of keeps on making me think that if this is the reality, which is, I feel like it is the reality, how do we manage to coexist in this society? And for Andrea, you've watched it 3 times, but for those people who haven't watched it yet, who would you recommend it to?
I think that this movie somehow is like for everybody. I'm not sure about children, but
Yeah.
but I think that it doesn't matter like from which country you are or any other kind of stuff. But I think, for instance, if you study cinema, I think this one is a good movie to analyze.
Right.
I think that there are a lot of like formal aspects of the movie that are really interesting and that you can learn like from this director and
Right.
like from how the production was behind. So I think in that sense, like the movie is really rich. Now talking about the plot, like there are a lot of things that were like plot twists, like, oh wow, how this happened. I didn't expect this, I didn't expect that. Or like how the character develop. Because I think in this movie, well, there are some characters that develop more than others, but I think that it's possible to see how like these families, like kind of interactions and everything, kind of show us like different aspects. And in that sense, someone that want to have a good time watching a movie, they are going to find like a jewel with this one.
Right.
They are going to have a good time. They are going to enjoy. And even if they want to have a good conversation, this one is a good movie to talk about. So
Right.
I think in that sense, it can be for everybody.
Pretty much everyone, I was going to say, it pretty
Yeah.
much appeals to such a wide audience. It
Yes.
could appeal to those interested in cinematography, like the cinephiles. It could also appeal to those who really just live their everyday lives, because the topic isn't something so niche. It's very
Exactly.
common. It's a very realistic approach in the theme itself. This is all we have for Who Reads Story. I had Andrea again with us. It was a
Yeah.
great
Thank you.
conversation, great discussion. And this is all we have for Who Reads Story. Don't forget to leave a like, a comment, and subscribe to our channel. I'll be back next week with a new episode for Who Reads Story. Thank you for watching. Bye.
Bye.